Well, Stephen Hawking said, "The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge." Most eloquent quote. And of course it was Marshall McLuhan who said that only the small secrets need to be protected because the big ones are kept secret by public incredulity. I have rather a big show for you today. I will probably be just rambling a little bit because there's so much I want to say to you, but I don't have anything actually prepared. I have no notes prepared at all. I just am going to try to give you a bit of a rundown through some of the history that people may not have noticed that's been happening in the 20th century. Of course, this always involves the bloodline that I mention to you so often. The bloodline that goes way back to ancient Egypt is very, very involved in what's going on with the world at the moment. But there are darker things that are happening that are a little bit more important. So I'd like to try to cover some of them today and hopefully not appear too crazy to you all when I try to explain to you a little bit about what's going on in the world and who's running the world and why the world is in the state it's in, and hopefully maybe some suggestions on how we can fix it. I just want to try to give you a little bit of an understanding of modern history, and it's very hard for me to try to figure out how to put all this into a nutshell to sort of fit it into an hour, for me to actually connect the dots for you and tell you exactly how all this ties in and where all these evidences lie would take me all day. It really would. But there's a few things I'd like you to think about regarding the events of the last 100 years. Well, really probably the last 63, 64 years. So we'll try to go through a little bit of that. Now, I've often told you about this bloodline, and when one starts investigating the bloodline that has ruled the earth for the last several thousand years, or at least the last 4,000 years, very likely a lot longer, when one starts investigating into this bloodline, it goes through all sorts of rivulets and streams and rivers, and it just runs everywhere. It's hard to put it into a nutshell. But it does go back to ancient Egypt. It comes through into Europe, you know, the Merovingians, House of Hanover, all of these people. Everything's interconnected, you know, yada yada. It just goes on and on. It's an incredible rabbit warren. It's a very, very complex issue, just understanding this bloodline. That's why it's so wonderful that we have other people who investigate this for us, and all we have to do is research the little bits we're unsure of. And we can get a lot of our information from various researchers, which is why you should always look at all of the researchers. Don't believe me, don't believe anybody. Go and look at all of their research, and then stand back and try to look at things objectively and see how it ties together. All of these people are great researchers. You know, we've got so many of them. Really, I mean, we've got Alex Jones, Richard Hoagland, Dr. Deagle, we've got David Icke, we've got Michael Tazarian. I mean, the list goes on. Bill Cooper. The list goes on and on and on. We've got so many of these people. And it's up to us to not choose which one's right, but to actually look at all of the information they've got and see how it ties together. Because each one of these people has a specialist field. They all have their own little rabbit hole that they've gone down. And they've sort of got a little bit, well, not tunnel visioned with it, but well, maybe, I don't know, maybe that is a way to describe it. But it's a good tunnel vision. I mean, because they've really concentrated on that particular side of things. And we've had a lot of people investigating what's happening with the free energy, what's happening with all of this hidden technology and suppressed stuff. We've got people investigating the UFO phenomena. We've got all sorts of people investigating all sorts of things, secret societies, bloodlines, how it all ties in with ancient pagan rituals. Like we've got people like Michael Tazarian looking at that through his astrology and his astronumerology and all of what we would consider to be pagan. You know, to see how this ties in with all the religious things. Because the people who are in control use all of these things. That's why you have to look into them. You have to look into numerology. You have to look into astrotheology. You have to look into the UFO phenomena. You have to look into everything and find out where the truth lies. You really do. You can't just take one path. You've got to understand how orchestrated things really are in this world. And so you've got to look at everything. Now, in the middle of this century, the middle of last century, we saw World War II, which, I mean, we could go right through this. We could go back and we could look at World War One. But we start doing this. We end up. It's a big story, folks. It's a big rabbit warren. And just to try to keep things a little bit relevant, we'll start around World War II. World War II was a big scam, folks. I mean, and this probably sounds strange, but it was a huge scam because World War II was run by European bankers. It was run by this bloodline. Hitler wasn't a bad guy per se. He was a figurehead. He was a mouthpiece. He was simply doing what he was told. We're told that he was this demonic person, but he was just a figurehead. He was as brainwashed as anybody else. He was groomed for the task, put it that way. He was groomed for the task. There's every indication that he was also related to the Rothschild bloodline, and you can research that for yourself, and you'll find out that there's some very, very strong evidence that Hitler was definitely related to the Rothschild bloodline. Now, in World War II, we've got to look at where the finance came from. It came from the Rothschilds. It came from companies like IG Farben. The Ford Motor Company was heavily involved. Averell Harriman. IBM was even involved. Standard Oil, Rockefeller Standard Oil. The Luftwaffe wouldn't be able to fly without a special fuel additive they had to get from Standard Oil, which is Rockefeller. All of these things were all tied in with certain American and British companies. Everything that happened in World War II, the whole Nazi war machine, was run by these people. The Bush family. The Bush family, Prescott Bush was Adolf Hitler's banker. This is who controlled all of the money flow. So all of these are intrinsically tied into these American companies and these British bloodlines. The whole thing was a setup. World War II was a setup, folks. Now, this might sound strange. I know they're going to go, you're thinking this guy's a nut. Listen, World War II was a setup. It was to lull everybody into a false sense of security. It was all run by these bloodlines. There is absolutely no evidence either that Hitler died in the bunker at the end of World War II. He just disappeared. They just told us that this body had been found and that, oh yes, we think this was Adolf Hitler. And, this was Adolf Hitler. We've done dental checks and we know it's Adolf Hitler. Well, look, did any of you people see the body? Was it Adolf Hitler? I didn't see the body. Nobody saw the body. Now, what happened was the Nazis were there and they were working on some pretty wild sort of technology in World War II. You can go and investigate the work of people like Joseph Farrell. Joseph Farrell's written a new book called The Brotherhood of the Bell. It's quite an amazing piece of work. Now, he ties so many connections together with some of the secret technology that the Nazis were doing. It makes an awful lot of sense what he's saying. That's just one part of it. That's just where you can go to reference some of this if you want to reference some of the technology and where it went to after the war. But when the Nazis left Germany at the end of World War II, because that's what happened, was they left. The Nazis didn't get defeated, they left. Germany got defeated in World War II. The Nazis simply went underground. They didn't get defeated at all. A lot of them moved down to South America. Everybody knows the stories about the Nazis all running to South America to hide. Well, think about it. These guys didn't run to South America to hide and shave their heads and put on burqas and pretend they're some field worker or something like that and hide in the forest. The people went down there with vast amounts of money, vast amounts of equipment, vast amounts of technology, and they set themselves up. You can do a lot of things with a lot of money, folks. And they had a lot of money. At the end of World War II, there was a lot of money that these people disappeared with. People like Martin Bormann. And a lot of them were brought to America in Operation Paperclip. I've talked about it in a couple of my films. And Operation Paperclip saw hundreds of Nazis taken from Germany. As many as 80 key figures. Probably even more. Really, really key figures in the whole Nazi infrastructure. These people were all brought to America and brought to South America. And this is when NASA was formed. And NASA, well, they say NASA's a private company, but the government can give permission whether stuff's released to the public or not. So it's not a private company, it's a government company. And not only is it a government company, it's a secret government company. Okay? This is a company run by the secret government that works behind the US government.